Kirby has always been one of my favorite uh, game series. If you just look at my avatar, the inspiration should be kind of obvious. Although I did at one point realize that it kind of looks like Jack Frost. So I don't know. Mistakes were made, or maybe it's not a mistake. I don't know. Either way, Kirby's been one of my favorite things for a very long time. Nearly my entire gaming lifetime, I guess. I think the first game I ever got was Kirby's Dream Land for my Game Boy, and I've loved the series ever since. And now we've reached a new age of Kirby where 3D Kirby that isn't Kirby's Air Ride is absolutely possible. Honestly, I'm surprised they didn't try this any sooner. Like, even when they had their first Switch game, it was like, oh, you're still doing a 2D platformer? I mean, okay, but you could do other stuff though. You could be doing more. I mean, I still, appreciate it, but at some point it kind of felt like Kirby games were getting a little stale for me, which really upset me because I don't like feeling that one of my favorite things is getting stale. But I think where I really realized this was Robobot. I was actually kind of disappointed with Robobot. I'm not saying it's a bad game, it's just my expectations going in were, I don't know, something else. And let me put it this way. There's a lot of great powers in Robobot. It's a great idea. The whole mech getting your powers thing is a cool idea, but I just don't think it was implemented well. I mean, you have all these complex powers and they've got all these different moves and stuff going on, and then the Robobots they can only take a few powers. They can't take them all. Even the ones that are available in the game, it's like, oh, we can only use 5 of them or something, I don't remember. And then the way they are able to use powers is kind of less than I would have expected, honestly. I don't know, it's like you can do all these cool moves with your base power, and then it's like you get the Robobot and it's like big slash or something, or blow fire, and that's about it. You can change the direction of the fire, but okay, what else? That's it? Cool. I don't know. I mean, up to that point, well, not any time a Kirby game came out, but a lot of Kirby games, if I knew about it when it was coming out, I'd be like, I'm getting that, because Kirby's awesome. But honestly, I would say Forgotten Land is probably my favorite Kirby game since Nightmare in Dreamland. No, not Nightmare in Dreamland. Amazing Mirror. That's the one. They're very similar, but specifically Amazing Mirror. And that one I would say I really liked because it was kind of a Metroidvania, I think, if I remember correctly. And I really liked that exploration aspect. But as with a lot of Kirby things, it's like you get a gimmick for one game and then it's probably not going to be in the next one or any others ever again. Or if it is, it's going to be like a shell of its former self. And it's not like that's necessarily a bad thing. It's like, maybe they should use some of the gimmicks again. Okay, that was good. Let's do another one of those. But I kind of get it. It's not like something like Pokemon where it's like you had a really good thing here and you just got rid of it for literally no reason. Kirby, I usually understand. The whole power combining thing that Crystal Shards had, that was a cool idea. But with some of the more recent powers that they've been adding to games, I get why they're not still doing it. They did kind of do power hybridizing in a couple games in the Game Boy Advance and DS era, but it makes sense that they're not going to just do that every time, because then how much are they actually going to be limiting what powers they can come up with? Granted, some Kirby powers go insane. It's like, why is that a thing? I mean, it's cool, but why? At any rate, one thing I've been doing a lot more recently with Kirby games is, at least since some of the more recent ones have the option, is playing co-op. Now, I think co-op can have a very fine line between, is this good? Is this perfect and meant to be co-op? Or is this really awful and not optimized for co-op at all? And I would say Forgotten Land is not at all good for co-op. It is a bad co-op experience. And I mean, I played with my wife. We still had a good time. But I would say, if you're gonna play this, you should probably play it single player. I mean, really, like a lot of the more recent Kirby co-op games, if you're in a couple, play it with your significant other. Go for it. But this one, like, what's a good one? I would say Epic Yarn was a good co-op experience. It wasn't perfect, but it was good. There's, I guess I wouldn't say there's no damage, but damage wasn't as big a factor. There wasn't really much of a penalty for dying, because you don't really die, you just lose some money. Whereas in this one, they still brought back the, oh, you're dead, now you have to go back to whatever checkpoint, which, if you're having trouble with the boss, can be kind of for whoever's playing Kirby. I would say the worst thing about this specific game with the co-op experience is whoever's playing Kirby has full control of the camera. Wherever Kirby is, that's where the camera's going to go. Bandana D is just kind of there, and if Bandana D goes too far away, he just zooms back to Kirby, or just is unable to go any further. And there isn't, like, in a lot of co-op games, there's that button that you can press where you can just teleport to player one. They don't have that in this, which is a little frustrating. And I kind of understand it for bosses and such, but for much of the rest of the game, why? Why do you not have that option? So yeah, overall, not a good co-op experience. You could still do it, it's doable, and you could still have a good time, but it's not something where it's simple enough to really, for both people to feel like they're doing something most of the time. I mean, occasionally, yes, not all the time. And honestly, I'm almost considering playing this through solo, but I probably won't, because I got other stuff to get through, and I've already done like 2.5 playthroughs of Elden Ring, and I need to stop. But anyway, as for the game itself, minus the lackluster co-op experience, very, very interesting. So this is the first 3D Kirby game, unless you count Kirby Air Ride, which you really can't, because, I mean, yeah, it was 3D, but it was a good gimmick game. It wasn't Kirby Adventure experience. This is like the first legit 3D Kirby game, and a lot of people were speculating it was going to be open world, like, whoa, you can, like, travel around this forgotten land and, like, explore, and, like, no, you can't. It's much the same as a normal Kirby, except it's 3D. That's it. The levels are still laid out in a specific way. They're still linear. It's still like different levels in different areas. And then you go through each level to get through an area. You go through each area to get through the game. It's the same, but with 3D. And, honestly, in the future, if they decide to make an open world or open world-ish Kirby, I'd be all for that, because I feel like they could do it. I feel like it would be difficult for them to implement because this is like their first time doing 3D, but I think they could probably do it. I think it's possible. I would say either that, or I'd like to see another Metroidvania Kirby. But anyway, I would say this does the 3D pretty well. I mean, there's a lot of interesting ideas being put around. On its own, pretty good level design. Combat is a bit more simplified than it used to be overall. Powers don't have all these like crazy things that they were able to do for like a lot of games. Like it was kind of like when Kirby started, he had very simple powers, and they did like one thing, maybe two things max. But now it's like a lot of the games you can go up, down, left, right, run and do something, mash the button and do something. Like there was a lot of Kirby games where it's just like powers got so complex that when they weren't as complex, they were like, why do you have this in here? This is boring. I don't understand it. But in this one, because you now don't have just a 2D plane and now you have the 3D, they had to simplify the powers a little bit, because you can't do the normal like 2D side scroller type button inputs. You got to do 3D stuff. And I think the way that they do it is great because a lot of the powers are simplified, but you're able to upgrade them. And the upgrades do much the same. I mean, not exactly the same, but much the same, but with slight variations. So one of the first ones you get is the sword, I think. Or maybe that's like, I don't know. It's not very far in that you get the sword upgraded. And really the only difference is that you go from sword to big sword. Like, okay, I mean, that's not all that much different, but hey, it changes the game up. The cutter ability goes from just the regular cutter ability to, oh, now you have chakrams. I think that's what they're called. And you can like shoot 2 out at once, and they like fly around and like circle back to you instead of just going out and then straight back. Like it goes even beyond that, because nearly every power, except for I think 2, can be upgraded at least twice. And I think there's 2 powers. I don't think there's any more than that, but there's 2 powers that you can upgrade a 3rd time, which means 4 variations of that same power. And honestly, 90% of the upgrades are great and like they're worthwhile upgrades. I would say there was, besides sleep, which is never like something that you usually want. In this one, it heals you. I don't think they've done that up to now. Maybe I could be wrong. I haven't played every Kirby game, despite how much I like Kirby. But in this one, sleep heals you, and you can upgrade it once, and then it heals you more and gives you an attack boost. But that's really only super useful in specific situations. And then I think the new power, one of the new powers that's in this that I kind of actually don't like is drill. It's an interesting idea. I just don't really like it. It was like the one power that I was always like, ugh, there's a level with this in it. I don't like this one. But pretty much everything else I like. The gun power, which I think is the new one. Well, not the new one, but one of the new ones. And that was one where everyone was like, whoa, Kirby's got a gun now. That power is awesome, and its upgrades are incredible, if I'm going to be honest. They also brought back a power that I haven't seen in a long time. It not necessarily hasn't been in games, but I haven't seen it in a long time. And that's Spike. I really haven't seen Spike a lot. And I don't know if it's been in many recent games, but I haven't noticed. And it was nice to see it make a comeback in such a nice way. Because the Spike power in this is, I don't know, in like earlier Kirby's, I would like almost never use the Spike power. I just didn't really like it. But in this, it's fantastic. It is great. I love it. And I would use it frequently. And yeah, pretty much every power, except for 1 or 2, is absolutely not disappointing. Like, some of them even go above and beyond. And if I had to stop there, I would be satisfied, but feel like there's something missing. But it's not just that. It's not just 3D. It's not just that you get power upgrades. There's still more. You have the mouthful modes, which is one of the big things that they advertised in this. And anytime there's like some big gimmick like that, I'm always a bit wary. Like, is this gimmick going to be implemented well? Is it going to be used too much? Not enough? This one I think is done well, used exactly as much as it's needed, and doesn't overstay its welcome, but also doesn't feel like it's not present. So anytime you use a mouthful mode, Kirby just basically stretches his body over it, like some horrifying monstrosity, and it's also kind of cute in like a weird messed up way. I really like the implementation because some of the mouthful modes, you pretty much have to use them to get through some levels, or you have to use them to find the secrets. And I feel like a lot of Kirby games recently have been like, okay, go through the level, but there's stuff to find, and if you find all the stuff, then you get other stuff, or you like unlock the secret final boss or something. And this one's no different. You have to find Waddle Dees though, and honestly, some of the Waddle Dees you have to find are really difficult to find, but it felt good. It felt good looking for them. Some of the challenges that most Kirby games have had, like there's that one that's been in a lot of Kirby games where it's like, this Waddle Dee has the secret key, and if it gets to the edge of this area, then it falls in a pit and dies, and then you can't get it anymore. I think there were some that were kind of similar, but I never had trouble getting to them. They just kind of like, oh, here it is, it floats down, make it within the time. But, it was always enough time. I don't think I ever had to redo one. Well, maybe once. Maybe once we had to redo one. But at any rate, that's great. The mouthful modes, they're actually really fun to use. I mean, there's a couple I like more than others. I would say the one I like the most is the ring mouth. Kirby just eats like a ring of something, and then he can basically use his mouth as a like air cannon, and it's just so fun. I just love it so much. And then the car was the one of the ones that they big advertised right away. I would say there's like there are a couple that are used way more frequently than the other ones. Like there's an air gliding one, and that one's used I think only as far as I can remember a total of 3 times. Maybe it was more than that. I just don't remember. But you know, they feel good. You get to keep your powers while you have them. It's not like, oh, you have to get rid of your powers before you can use this. Like, no, it's like you can keep your power hat on and suck this up, and it's great. I think the mouthful modes were a great addition. I don't feel like they're going to use it again, but I thought it was very creative, and honestly, I wouldn't be against seeing them again, because just the way they were done, excellent. And then to supplement the power upgrades and the mouthful modes, you also have like secret challenge things. I don't know what to call them. They're like treasure trails or treasure something. And basically you do those so you can get the power upgrade currency, which is these like star jewels. In each power upgrade, you basically need a certain number, and you know, you collect blueprints throughout the game. A lot of the blueprints are secret, which is like, hey, you want to upgrade this power? Okay, cool, go find the thing. And that was fun to look for too. Another kind of more minor change that they added is because now you're in a 3D space, just running around isn't always going to cut it. So now they added a dodge, which is quite nice. I mean, you can just kind of guard and then dodge normally, or you can like dodge at the right time and it kind of slows stuff down. And in some cases gives you like an extra move to use. I think the gun ability is one where they have something a bit more different. You dodge and then you just basically just get to rapid fire gunshots. There's not a lot of others that I can think of where it's anything super different. I think the sword, it's like you dodge and then you get like just like an extra slash. I don't know, but it was nice. Some of the bosses, honestly, even with the dodge available, were kind of tough. And even though I was doing co-op, some of them we struggled with a little bit. You know, that first one, not too hard. Big, intimidating, but not too hard. Some of the later ones, oh my goodness. The armadillo one is the one I hated the most for the longest time, until we got to like one of the way later, a couple of the way later bosses, and I mean like post game way later. Some of those post game bosses were ridiculous. In fact, I think the only boss we ever died to was probably the secret final boss, and I don't well, or maybe no, I think we died to 2 of the like post-game bosses, and it was like the last one and the second to last one, or like third, or was it the last one and the third to last one? I don't know, however you'd count it, but like my goodness. So I don't know, Kirby games always have this thing where they start off deceptively easy, and then like you get to the end or like the post-game and you're like, oh my goodness, this is difficult, like I actually have to try now. But at any rate, it's still, you know, just a fun, wholesome experience. It's a Kirby game. It's nice and cute until you get to like the end, and then it's like, oh my god, am I fighting God? What is going on? What is this horrible eldritch monstrosity? So, you know, it's standard Kirby affair. I did really like the Waddle Dee Town, which is kind of like your hub world. That's where you go to upgrade your powers. You can do mini games. You can, there's a Coliseum there at some point. Once you beat the main game, you get like a music box. Basically, the more Waddle Dees you get, the more just stuff there is. And some of them just are really fun and nice. I mean, it's like, a couple of them, it's like, well, you can only do them so many times before it's like, okay, I've had my fill. But they're still fun to do. The fishing minigame is like the simplest and easiest, and probably the one I like the most, which is odd because I don't generally do any fishing minigames. But my wife was like, oh, hey, let's do the mini games. I'm like, okay. And then it was like, okay, I'm actually having fun here. Anyway, I mean, there's not much more to say other than it's 3D Kirby. And they can clearly expand upon this, but this is a great first step. I'm glad to see Kirby finally getting out of 2D for the second time, to my knowledge, that in a way that's not like a spin-off game. I want to see more. I like what's here. Everything's just so fluid and put together. I mean, it still feels a lot like, a platformer where just, it's like, oh, these are very video game things to have here. But, I mean, it's still Kirby too. So I don't really know what else to expect. But I liked it. I want to see another one of these because I enjoyed it so much. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Press all the buttons. And I hope you have a great day.